What's up, coach? How do you get out of the hot and cold situation?
So, a woman being hot and cold, there could be a number of reasons for that. It might be somebody that you just started dating and she broke up with somebody before you guys met. And so, since women do the dumping 75% of the time, usually the guy is not going away willingly and he's still in the background. And so, if you're dating, a woman who just say she just recently filed for divorce or she broke up with her boyfriend of 3 years and moved out maybe 3 or 4 weeks before you met. Well, you should expect, and I write about this in 3% Man, that she's going to be hot and cold because she'll be excited 1 week to hang out with you, and the next week it's almost like she can't seem to make time for you. Probably because the ex is still in the background, and women need, just like us guys, they need time to heal and get over the breakup. And so the hot and cold behavior is typically because there could be an ex in the background or somebody else that they were dating that kind of went sideways with, and then you came along and you had a few dates and she seemed to be really into you, and then all of a sudden she's kind of cold and distant. Maybe somebody that she was dating before you now came back in the picture and she was really into him, and so now she's going to spend more time with that guy and less time with you. It also might be that you're communicating that you're more into her than she's into you. Or maybe you did some stupid things, or you said things that were very unattractive, or you acted unattractive. Maybe you came off as needy and insecure, and you called too much, you texted too much, you drooled all over her, talked about your strong feelings for her, how much you were into her. You're talking about the future when you've been out on 3 dates. And so if you're doing that, there'll probably be a pullback. So it's usually an ex, or the guy has done something to turn her off and act unattractive. And it's also possible she might be a little bit of a Fruit Loop. But you got to understand, if you're going to date women and you're going to date different women, especially as you're learning this stuff, you're going to come across some women that are really into you and make the effort and are pretty consistent. And then there's going to be other women that are going to be kind of all over the ice. And as a man, you got to figure out what's really going on here. Is there an ex in the background? Did I screw up? Did I act unattractive? Did I turn her off? Was I a dick the last time I was with her? You got to figure those things out, and by understanding the book, and if it's nothing that you did, maybe what oftentimes happens, especially when you're dating somebody new, is like I was just doing an email the other day. A guy was dating a girl for a few weeks, and then Christmas came along, and then they spent a whole week together. And actually, no, I take that back. I think they were dating close to 2 months. But was it 3 months? And so this was one of the video newsletters. And then they spent a whole week together during Christmas. But she wasn't in love with him yet. She hadn't asked to be exclusive, and they're dating almost 3 months. And even though he said he was following the book, he's 3 months down the road. And so after they spent a week together, not only did she pull back, but she ended things. And so that tells me he was typically paying too much attention to his own feelings and interests and acting from that place. And he wasn't really paying attention to the fact that she was kind of getting turned off and bored, or he noticed that, she canceled dates, or that she wasn't that into him, or the last time they had sex, he could tell she really wasn't that into it, but they still had sex. And so he thinks, oh, well, it's just, maybe a one-off thing. And then he ignores the fact that her interest has been kind of going down. Because if you've been dating a girl for 3 months and then you spend a whole week together at Christmas time, and then right after New Year's comes along, she dumps you, then obviously somewhere along the way she got turned off and decided she didn't want to see you romantically anymore. That's why it's so important to figure out what it is you're doing and saying that is turning women off. Because if you don't fix it with this one, the next girl that you meet that you really like, you'll do the same exact things. You'll call too much, you'll chase too much, you'll act too beta, and she'll pick up on that. She'll be able to tell that you're way more into her than she's into you, and women naturally back off in those situations. And most men don't react too well when that happens, as we've discussed with Caroline and Jade on several of the podcasts we've done on 3%. You typically get most guys, as they've said, 2 to 3 weeks before they start doing and saying things that turn the girls off. And almost in 100% of the cases, the guys are unable to recover from that. When they sense that the girls have become less interested, the guy continues to pursue and call more, which usually ends up in ghosting or just outright, hey, I'm not interested. It's best that you move on and find somebody else. So, every guy's got to find that sweet spot between calling and texting and pursuing too much and being too much of a cold fish and not ever calling or texting at all. And when you're in that sweet spot, it's almost like you can do no wrong. She's just going to be stuck to you like white on rice, and she'll always be making the effort most of the 95% of the calling, texting, and pursuing because women like you more if that's a situation. Even though if you got a room of 50 or 100 women together and you all ask them that question, most of them will probably go, oh, we want it to be 50-50, and that's what they think. But intellectually, but what they actually respond to is the guy that they have to do most of the pursuing with. And that's as long as he's reciprocating. Now, like what we were talking about in the last question with Caroline, it's like if the guy is consistently not reciprocating, you got to pay attention to those things. Because if somebody cares, they make the effort. If they don't, they just never make the effort.
Or what about when guys, they're good, like we always say, they're good off the gate, and then they start doing stuff like, I guess not really ghosting you, but they'll talk to you, but then they'll be say, oh, we'll meet up at this time, and then they don't do it, and then the next week they're like, oh, let's go out here, and then they actually meet you up for a date. It's like they're kind of going back and forth, and like you're going like a rubber band.
Yeah, in that case, what you have to look at is the guy's not being consistent.
Yeah.
And so in that case, I would say you're probably more just a booty call. And the reason he didn't want to see you the one week is because they were probably hooking up with somebody else. But the next week, they got nothing else going on. And then that's why they're all like, hey.
It's
Yeah.
the girls in rotation.
Yeah, exactly. So a guy who really likes you is going to be happy to hear from you. He's going to make the effort. He's going to be consistent. He's going to be excited to see you over and over and over again. Like with the football player, he was totally inconsistent, and that's what made it easy to spot the fact that he wasn't that into it. And so you got to pay attention to those things. You can't just ignore it and only focus on your feelings about the other person because a lot of us tend to do that. Especially if we grew up in an environment where, like, my parents were emotionless zombies. They never said I love you. They never, other than when we were real little, they never came up and put their arms around us and said I love you, I'm proud of you. That shit just never happened. My grandfather, my dad's dad, would come over and shake our hand at Christmas time. It wasn't, I love you, I'm so glad to see you, kids, give me a hug. It was, hey, how are you? It was like very business, very cold, very emotionless. And so as a child, you grow up in that kind of environment, you're starved for affection. And so when I became old enough to date and become interested in girls, it's girls that had a boyfriend or weren't that interested. It's like, she's perfect for me. And then you stay stuck on a girl that has no interest in you or has a boyfriend. You're hoping that when if it doesn't work out, that you're going to get your shot. And usually what ends up happening is as soon as you find out she's single, she's already fucking somebody else because there was already, a dude that had better game than you that she was interested in. And then you think, okay, well, maybe the next time. And when that happens enough, you finally start to realize it's like you're either in or you're out. She either likes you enough to go out or she doesn't. So you don't sit around and try to keep changing somebody's mind. It's just if they don't make the effort, then you're on to the next. Because she can always come back when she notices that she hasn't heard from you in a few weeks or a few months. If they like you, they won't be okay with you leaving forever. If they don't really care, you'll leave forever and they won't even really notice. That's just the harsh reality.